I'm so happy today to have Thad Fisco here. Thanks for coming and doing
Pleasure.
this.
Yeah, super happy to do it. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Yeah, this is kind of like I've followed you for a long time online, and one of the things I like to do with the show is have business owners on here, and so I
Hmm.
always appreciate your perspective online and sharing your take on the city and what they're doing in the county and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks.
So I'm happy to talk to you today.
Yeah, it's good.
Um, and this is kind of dumb, but for a long time, I don't know why, I don't know if I'm like dyslexic or something, but I thought your name was Thad Fiasco for a long time.
Right,
Is that a common?
yeah, right, a lot of people would say that even knowing me well.
Like I legitimately thought that's what it said, and then I was
Yeah,
like, wait a minute, no, it's not.
this can't be for real.
But you're also the first Thad I've ever met, I think, which
Really?
is
Yeah, it's not a common name. Obviously, I've met two or three in my life,
okay.
all
Yeah.
great people. I mean, yeah,
I was gonna say, yeah, how many have you come across? Because I've never, but yeah, it's a cool name. And
yeah.
um, so yeah, first of all, just tell kind of people like a high level thing about your business and what you guys do and all this.
Yeah, so my current business, well, I've been in Portland since 2000, and I came here with the intention of getting into real estate development. I came from the East Coast and had a partner, still have him. We worked together to buy old, sort of blighted buildings and bring them up to highest and best use. So we worked in Southeast Portland, primarily picking up EXD properties that allowed warehouse to be turned into, say, office or retail uses. And we worked on the Williams corridor and some other areas in town, did real well with it. In 2008, sort of didn't clean our clock. We managed to we didn't lose any properties, which was great. Uh, the the emphasis during that period of time was keep tenants in business, basically do whatever we needed to do to help them survive uh, that financial crash that happened.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's funny because I don't know if you know, I've talked about it on here a few times, but for the past 5 years, I've worked in like housing education. So
hmm
when you say in 2008, I know immediately we're talking about, but I'm curious too, was that you weren't as affected as residential or, but it was still pretty
it was
crazy.
it was bleak because a couple of things happened. First of all, the banks retracted completely, so the any lending
Right.
possibility disappeared. Not only we were in good standing with our lenders, and we had lines of credit, which we had never used. And the first thing they did is shut those down.
Hmm.
Umpqua Bank specifically shut down our line of credit, and it was um,
Even though you were in good standing and everything.
a
Yeah.
really interesting conversation. We got shut down because we were in good standing.
Okay.
If we were upside down and overextended on a bunch of things, properties, and if we weren't performing on loans, they would have to work with us. But because we weren't, it was a real simple
Hmm.
decision.
Hmm.
We need to get our books balanced again. And so guys like my partner and I had our lines of credit shut down, which was at the end of the day, we weren't using it anyway, so it
Hmm.
wasn't that big of a
Hmm.
deal. But it was just kind of interesting to go through all those different machinations and see how the system starts to work. Yeah, there was a lot of pain in the retail and commercial market too.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know. We don't do any residential, so I can't speak to it specifically. But
Any type of, whether it's commercial real estate or
yeah,
anything was affected. Yeah.
everything was affected.
Yeah.
It was such a tremendous downturn. No one was spending money. Um, what a mess that was. It
Yeah.
felt like the lights turned off too.
I
There was no warning. It was just like one day,
It
boom,
just came. Yeah,
this is over.
and all I knew, I was like in my early 20s at the time, and all I knew was I was working at KGW, and I was like, everyone's getting laid off. All I knew
Yeah,
was people were losing their jobs, and I,
yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
really understand the housing market at that time. But
yeah.
um,
Yeah, no
so
one's
you,
advertising, no one's spending money. It
right,
was
right,
an instant, massive,
instant
massive recession.
recession,
Yeah, yeah,
basically.
a
Yeah,
tremendous recession.
yeah.
Yeah,
So you kind of survived through that.
yeah, and then it was we had one. John, my partner, and I had one project left that we were working on down on Sixth between Morrison and Ash, and it turned that was where Trifecta was before
Mm.
he sold, and Voice Box is still in that building. Um, but there wasn't there we had I think we had purchased that right as things started to melt down, and so we were committed to it and we finished it. We found tenants. We were very lucky in all those regards. And then I was living outside Portland in Cornelius and driving downtown every day, but I had
Wow,
nothing to do. I mean, there was no traffic. The commute was phenomenal.
that's interesting because that's kind of like when in 2020 when COVID was going, I still had to go and work to shoot video,
Yeah,
but it was the same thing. I could make it to Vancouver, downtown Vancouver in like 10
Yeah, nobody on
minutes.
the road.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
wholly different experience. So it's,
yeah. I didn't know that. That was the same in '08, I guess.
oh,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah. I mean, we were, I remember sitting in that traffic on 26 coming downtown and every day packed with cars. It was maddening. Now I live downtown. Um, yeah, but by 2011, still nothing was going on, but I still had a small weld shop. I was doing for our development business, I was the contracting side. So I had a
Mm-hmm.
little weld shop, and local brewers were bringing in tanks and kettles and things that they wanted worked on. And so we started to do that. And then with a team that we had at the time in the shop, which was very small, it was really just three of us. We came up with this little brewing system for, that was about 100, make about 100 gallons of beer, which is 3.5 barrels of beer. And we happened to hit the market right at the right moment.
Mm.
At that point in time, there were 1,900 breweries in the United States, and today there's over 10,000. So
Wow.
we just grew with that. And, we stayed sold out 8, 9 months continuously for a decade, busy with that
Wow.
business.
Wow.
It's since dropped off as fast as it started. It's it's in disarray at the moment, which is causing us for our business to pivot and look at other business opportunities. But that's what I did for a decade. And the name of the company is Portland Kettle Works. Portland at the beginning of that process, we had the most breweries in the nation per capita, and that was a big, that was a feather in our cap, especially getting into the brewing business. Everybody wanted to be like Portland. They wanted,
Yeah.
and a lot of the states still had antiquated laws that prevented uh, breweries from starting and distributing beer, or even to starting and opening and having like a tap room to be able to sell beer to people. So without going too deeply into it, there's post prohibition, the big brewery that would or brewers that remained, the Miller Coors now and the Anheuser Busch, which is actually InBev, really controlled the market, and they love the system. It's called three tier, which is somebody makes the beer, somebody distributes the beer, somebody drinks or sells it to the client who drinks the beer.
Sure.
That three tier doesn't like disruption. For sure, it doesn't like disruption, and the craft brewing business is tremendous disruption to that, because now you can make beer
Sure.
and you can sell it directly to your client. And Oregon was interesting. It might have been the first state that permitted you to open a tap room at your brewery and distribute up to 10,000 barrels of beer a year, which is quite a bit of beer.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially it said, hey, if you're going to make beer in the state of Oregon, have at it.
Yeah.
No one's stopping you.
You can kind of do it at a commercial
And you could do it at a
level.
commercial level, and you could
Yeah.
be profitable. This is why you had the Widmer breweries and Bridgeport Brewery and Deschutes and all these other older names in the business. They're sort of legacy now. Um, of course, Bridgeport's gone, but
Yeah. Well, I was thinking because I've heard a little bit about, I guess, in just the national scale, like people just aren't drinking beer as much. Is that kind of what you meant when you said it fell off?
yeah, there's definitely some of that. Drinking habits have changed, but man, this is beer.
Yeah.
To be patient for a
It's a
minute.
staple. Yeah.
Yes, people are going to come back to beer. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of time. But I think there was too much beer, that too many breweries hit the market all at the same time. There's a brewery on two corners in
Right.
every
Right.
city that you go to. So
It's a little
it's
oversaturation.
it was I think there's some oversaturation. I think there were some questionable QC.
Mm.
Maybe some of the beer wasn't as good as it could have been, and at the beginning, like when we started our business, it didn't matter. I mean, if you make beer, people drank it.
Yeah.
But they became educated by 2015, 16, 17. They were getting it figured out, and they could tell, this is good beer. That's suspect. And the people who were making suspect beer immediately started to have problems. And then COVID came. Those were just trends in the industry.
Right.
So
Right.
there was actually a push to quality, and so everybody that cared was making better and better beer. But when COVID came, like our clients were smaller taproom type people, so they make their beer and they sell it, and they don't even necessarily distribute it at all. So when you tell them that you can't open the doors, they have
That's
no.
kind of it. Yeah.
That's it, and they've
Yeah.
still got mortgage, and they've still got loan payments on the equipment,
Yeah.
and
So there's nothing coming in,
Zero.
and then all these bills that you got to
So
pay.
they were trying to pivot and buy little canning machines and distribute. And God, I mean, the resilience was incredible and the amount of work that people put into
Hmm.
it. But I think a lot of people burned out on the way through that process. It was rough, and they got behind, and now the ramification is that there's just a lot of them going out of business. They
Hmm.
either either they're getting foreclosed on, which certainly is happening, or their leases are running out and they're just throwing in the towel and saying,
Right, right.
I'm done.
Yeah, I see that a lot in Portland certainly now. And the lease comes to an end, they're like, well,
Yeah, I'm done.
we're not
Yeah.
interested in keeping this going
Yeah. Well,
for other reasons too. But yeah.
commercial leases are, it's an interesting topic for Portland. So being in the real estate development business, I think commercial lease is it's a serious document. When you sign that, as you probably know, having maybe been in the same situation, you put a personal guarantee on almost all of those. So
Mm.
if you cease in business, you still have responsibility for the remainder of the lease period.
Hmm.
If you go out of business and you have 2 years left, and you're spending, I don't know, if you're plus triple net, so taxes, insurance, maintenance, all the things that come with a lease. If your lease is $5,000 a month, you're 60,000 bucks a year times two. You owe the landlord
Mm,
$120,000.
mm.
Now, you may be able to work your way out of that. Find another tenant, for instance. Most landlords will let you go. Unlike banks, who won't let you, or the IRS. If you have tax delinquency or issues with banks, they're going to ask you to pay every last cent that you owe them. But landlords have the ability and the advantage that they can find another tenant to move into the building.
Right.
Which, if as long as somebody picks up the baton and runs with it, any good landlord worth their salt, especially in the city of Portland, is going to let you off the hook and say, "Hey, we get it. Go
Hmm.
about your business." And
Yeah. No, I actually didn't know. It's kind of perfect that you have that background. I didn't know that you had the real estate part of it because one of the first things I was going to ask you about, because it's been on my mind for the past month or so, is, and you just posted about this AI. I'm calling it the AI ban, and I'll talk a lot more about it. I'm doing an episode this weekend, 90-day review of all the city councilors. But
good on
for
you.
some reason, the way you articulated it, I was telling you a second ago, like sometimes when I'm making a post, I kind of go too long, and but you articulated exactly what I was thinking of. Like, the city council needs to come out strong in its first move with a very welcoming business
Yeah.
message, and that's not what it's doing with this.
No, no. This is
Uh,
it's. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the specifics of the AI ban. It may actually be great. It might be a good idea. I have no
mm,
idea. What I do know is that, and what I had really hoped for in this new city council was, and the new form of government, but primarily this is a city council issue, not a form of government issue, is that they were going to come out and say, "Hey, we understand that the economics of Portland are super important, and we want to change the way that we operate in the city and make it a place that incentivizes business." And I think when you talk to business people in Portland, I don't, you would be extremely hard pressed for anybody that's been here and run businesses in Portland for any period of time to coax them to say that they feel like Portland incentivizes them in any way to be
mm,
here. So it's a question of incentivizing versus disincentivizing. Incentivizing means that you're bringing in something that you value. Disincentivizing means that you don't. You don't value that, and therefore you're going to push it away. Portland's MO since Vera Katz was mayor has been disincentivizing business to stay. And a lot of it's not like there's a mind frame around it. It's just a little bit of preying upon business. Okay, who pays the taxes? Business. Everything you want to do, hit those guys with it. Let them
right.
pay. They're over here. They're making a
Kind of
lot of money.
cast as the bad guy
Yeah, they're cast as the
forever.
bad guy
Yeah.
forever, and it's tough. And so yeah, the first piece of legislation, it's taken. It's going to take a little while for these folks. I think they're all good. Look, we have 12 counselors. I would say that to a person, I guarantee you they want to see Portland be a better place to live.
Hmm.
Okay, they would all agree 100% on
Yeah,
that.
they're thinking that they're doing that. Yeah.
That's a great place to start. Okay. We should agree on what we all agree on. Okay. Now, let's start looking at what can be done to continue the process of discussing how do we get to be a better place to live.
Hmm.
And the moment it becomes divisional, the moment you say I'm going to single out a group and I'm going to say that you're incentivized and you're disincentivized, you've lost the conversation as far as I'm
Mm.
concerned.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons that I haven't made a post about it, but it's just so it's such a high contrast to me of because the governor Tina Kotek and Keith Wilson, the mayor, both just had this big "we're cutting the red tape on
Yeah,
housing"
how
thing.
well, yeah.
We're gonna which first of all was funny to me because I just see that red tape is created by many of those same people. Like Tina Kotek was in the state legislature for a long time, but I think I agree with what they're doing. But then I look at the city council, and that's the opposite direction of the red. They're adding red tape in my mind with this AI stuff, and
Well, yeah,
um,
it has. It's interesting. I was just sent from my life partner. She sent me a podcast a couple days ago and asked me to listen to it before I came here. And it's I could pull it up for you and let you know who it is. But it was fascinating to listen to because what it discussed was an extremely progressive couple of guys.
mhm.
I've forgotten their names.
I'll put a link or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
to it.
that's great. Anyway, essentially coming out and saying, "Hey, we have all these good meaning things that we want. We really want to accomplish all these things as progressives, and and we get that, but we bog the whole thing down because we lard it up with crazy notions that if you want to build housing, well, now if you're going to do low income and you're going to take a penny of money from the city or the state or the feds, it now has to be a LEED certified building.
Mhm.
You have to have minority contractors on it. You have to use union for this, that, and the other thing. And before you know it, oh, and then with Portland, 20%, let's say if you're going to just do regular housing or not, you're either going to build at 19 units or you're going to build over 19 units, and 20% of what you build has to fit another mold. So all these things start getting clobbed on to
Mhm.
what is well intentioned. Great, it's well intentioned, but the result is what matters. It's not the intention; it's the result, and the result is nobody's building in Portland anymore.
Yeah, I want to say, especially from your perspective, as somebody who's lived in that world, that's all I see as a developer, even in the state or out of the state. They look at that and they go, "No thanks, I'll do this somewhere else."
Well, yeah, they're going to. It's listen. That's how capital markets work.
Yeah.
I think about it a lot. It's like, for whatever reason, it feels like business is vilified in our city in Portland, Oregon,
Hmm.
and if if that okay, take for instance, instead of an AI ban, okay, let's say that city council said, hey, let's pull together some of the developers who've done good work in the city of Portland. There's a lot of really
Yeah.
good, well-meaning developers who have been here and done a lot of good work in the city. And let's have a conversation with them about the goals that we're after.
Hmm.
Okay. I can tell you an AI ban would not be on the table. It might hit the table, but it would go away immediately because there would be most likely a very rational response to why that's good. And think about the other side. There could be several things about that that are great. Like I said, I don't know anything about it,
Yeah.
but same thing with inclusionary housing. If it became punitive, and when I say punitive, it literally was something dreamt up to punish developers for making money in Portland.
Hmm.
You're going to make money, you're going to do this. Okay. Those conversations happened in the city with developer friends of mine who came out of the meetings and they told me this is punitive.
Yeah.
They literally sat in the meeting and said, this has to be punitive. There's no way around it. And that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and it makes me think of, I'm not, uh, I didn't do like a super deep dive on the AI stuff, but I know the AI pricing ban stuff's been a while on the national housing
Hmm.
market for at least the past year. And there is some merit to it, but my big issue with it is, and I just learned this morning, I guess there's not really open testimony with just the city bill. But the thing that really bugs me is the penalties. And it
Hmm.
made me think of what you were saying about being punitive because I think the first violation is like 10 grand.
Yes, 10 grand.
And it's
I
like,
saw that.
it's just, I understand that, like, maybe in a different time, 10 years ago or something, that would have been super popular. I just think that this is totally the
Yeah,
wrong message and the
no,
wrong
and
timing.
I've looked at the numbers. Portland is not the most expensive place to live. We're probably in some place close to the median
Yeah, I
at
know.
this point. So
I mean, there's crazy, like Hawaii, there's crazy places
there's
that are,
there's places
yeah.
that are a lot of places that are more expensive. But if we're in the middle, we ought to be able we ought to be able to survive, right? It's not a bad place to be in the middle.
Yeah.
You don't want to be at the bottom, and you don't want to be at the top, but be in the middle, fine. You should be able to work out the middle.
Hmm.
That means that you're kind of swimming with the rest of the school. And um, when you find that you're at the bottom, which if you're at the top and it's good stuff, great, good on you. If you're at the bottom and it's all bad stuff, you need to start thinking about different ways to do things. And that's what's so annoying about the AI ban to me is going back to it. I mean, specifically, we need pro-business legislation in
Hmm.
Portland. We need business to have a say, and we need business to be brought to the table on finding solutions. These are our business community here is not about destroying our city. It's about making a better city.
Yeah.
Okay, but we get picked on. All right, and so when we drive that wedge between there, you disenfranchise business and it goes away. Okay, your local businesses will stay, but that's not what we need. We need what we call tier three businesses and better. We need
Hmm.
people to bring money to Portland. So, like my business, I sell equipment all over the world and I bring dollars to Portland. Those dollars, I go to the coffee shop. I'm spending money from New York State or Texas or
Hmm.
wherever somebody bought something from me. It's a great thing. We need more of that.
Right.
And
Right.
when we say, we really care, buy local, be local, do this locally, we're recycling money.
Yeah. Yeah.
That money it all leaks away eventually, and so it's a big economic cycle. But that's sort of what we're seeing is it slowly leaks away. If you don't have fresh blood coming in, eventually you become destitute. So
Yeah. Yeah. It is a really interesting. I don't know. A couple years ago, that kind of I was listening to some podcasts, local ones here, and there was a way it was explained to me that made total sense because everyone loves small businesses here,
yeah,
and
as they should.
we would love to just have that and like do that, but they can't exist without the bigger and medium sized businesses to feed them, and
Yeah, yeah. Big business.
it's an environment, and
Yeah, no, it's a complete ecosystem. And
yeah.
one of my buddies is actually a developer of all of Slab Town. Said the other day to me
Okay. Yeah.
that without economic strength, you don't have anything. I mean, there's nothing to even start with. So if you don't have an economy that's working, you have nothing afterwards.
Mhm.
And I think we're staring that right in the face right now.
I
We're
think so too.
staring at
Yeah.
an economy that isn't working. And if you're not paying attention to that, or you believe this is okay, you're fooling yourself. You should take a harder look and educate yourself about what's going on. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
I've seen these things, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once the wheels come off, it takes a really long time to get them back. Portland's cycle isn't going to come back right away. I think anybody thinking that we're just going to rebound out of this thing is, unless I will say, there are some things that could happen that could change course for Portland very rapidly. But it really comes down to incentivizing versus disincentivizing.
Hmm.
Everybody's got an incentive except business in Portland, but you can't run the city without business. And look, the city's starting to figure that out. Well, at least they're looking at it. I don't know if they're figuring
Yeah.
out.
Just
The
been seeing it.
budgets are short. This isn't a single issue. This is last year the budget was short too. This last year 8%. This year 10 to 12%. Okay, I'll sit here and ask today, how much next year? Are we 10 to 12%? Are we 15%? You just pick a number. I mean, pick it
Yeah.
out of a hat. It doesn't matter. It's going to continue going down this road. And every year we're going to run into the same problem until we change direction. So, what makes us think that if we continue to repeat the same thing that we've been doing, how are we going to break that cycle and move to a positive side of it?
Yeah. Yeah. It is. Economic movement takes a long time. I know it's like frustrating for people, but yeah, it does take.
Yeah. Plus, you got
uh,
reputational damage. I mean, there's
yeah.
that needs to be
Well, the
overcome.
the thing that blew my mind, I made a post a couple weeks ago that this happened in a recent city council meeting, but it was the new permitting bureau. I forget what they're called now. They changed their
P&D or
name.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, they change a name, but same old program.
Yeah, but they had a graph of showing their I believe it was their reserves, and it just blew my mind that they are now spending what's left of the old boon from 20, I think it was 2010 to like 2015. And it just paints the picture for me perfectly of, all that money's been exhausted and spent. And we're in this slump now of just not a lot of new activity coming into the city.
Yeah,
And
and they're
I
looking
agree
at
with you. We're
cuts.
facing that
Yeah, 200. I
barrel.
think 200 people are going to come off that payroll That's
Yeah.
what I heard.
Yeah.
I was looking at something the other day that it looks
The
like,
permitting.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I may be wrong on that, but I thought I saw something that said
But yeah,
that's
that's
a big
why
cut.
all this stuff is so important to me, and I think to you too, of just like, it's an opportune time to make a decision. We're in a fork in the road here as a city, and if we keep doing the same old stuff, and like this first anti-business move from the council is not a good sign. But there's, we could still make moves to improve things, and
Yeah, yeah. We definitely could. I mean, I started to spearhead. I've been thinking about this for a really long time, and then the council changed. I had some involvement with the elections and trying to like get really formative foundational council members on council
mm,
through a 12 for PDX, which was a little very grassroots group that we put together, and we endorsed a bunch of candidates. 7 of them made it onto council. We feel great about
pretty
that.
good. Yeah.
Um, and we had a strong showing for the little bit. We're just a small organization, but we did what we did and felt good about it. That but I anticipated when this new council came together that there would be a different sort of mindset about
Yeah.
how the city is. And look, they got a lot to do. I mean, if you've been watching council,
Yeah.
they're working
I'm
on a
trying to
lot of
give him
small,
grace too with
yeah,
the new system and all that, but
absolutely.
my patience wears thin.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
does. That's the problem is, it's like do something really formative and wow, we got a piece of legislation that actually made it out and is anti-business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus, where do we go
Yeah.
from here?
No, I agree. I think even for a lot of people, that was like the whole new council, the whole voting, the new voting system was like a fresh start, and people were prepared to go in a new direction. And
Yeah.
so far, I'm not really seeing that. I hope it
Well,
changes, but
the counselors are getting an earful, though. We have
yeah, yeah,
representational
yeah,
government
yeah,
now. They're going into the neighborhoods. They're hearing the people say, "I want this, I want that," and those are the things that need to happen because it was government for the bureaus
right.
because basically five counselors that we had before, four and a mayor,
Hmm.
each had bureaus and they were protecting turf and they were doing what the bureaus told them to do. And so this is a completely different program now.
Right.
Now we're
Decentralized.
out here talking to council members and saying, hey, we want our streets cleaned up. We got a pothole over here that we
Hmm.
need to get this stuff taken care of, or whatever it is, big, small, and everything in between. Um, and the counselors are hearing that, and they don't have bureau responsibility anymore, so now they can turn around and say, hey, we need better services.
Hmm.
That's foundational government. That's exactly what Portland needs. It needs foundational government right now. They need to set up this new system, and it needs to have guardrails, and then they need to legislate according to the guardrails would be the best way to go about it. I see chaos right now. Maybe they got it better under control. You're probably paying closer attention
I
to it
think
than
we're
I am.
probably similar. I don't know. It's hard. Like there's few people in Portland who track what they're doing. Obviously the journalism community does, but yeah, I think you, me, and Max Steele, who I'm gonna have on here, he tracks them pretty closely. But
Hmm.
I mean, it's a perfect kind of segue because that's what I was gonna ask. Was just like, how is the council living up to your expectations? I mean, you've been talking about it for a few minutes, but was
Yeah,
it
I guess
just the whole new system and all that stuff?
well,
Yeah.
the thing is, it's a blank canvas, so they need to figure it out. And
Right.
so,
Yeah.
what my expectations are? Well, as I continue to study it and spend time looking at other, peer cities and what other cities are doing that are our size, especially right in our niche, um, we don't look very good. I mean, I'll be honest with you, we're not in a good place, and should be a big concern for us because we should at least be in with them. And if we
Mhm.
used to lead, I mean, we were at the top, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So I spoke with Vera Katz, right?
Yeah.
How long you been in Portland?
I moved here 2006.
Okay, so she
Yeah.
she was gone by that
Yeah, it
point.
was Tom
Unfortunately, passed
Potter,
away. Yeah,
I
Tom
think. Yeah.
Powers and
But
Sam Adams right after
I've
her, and then
heard
Tom Potter.
I've heard a lot of fans of her, and I know
Yeah.
she's remembered fondly, but I don't know. I've also heard bad things about.
Well, she was tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, bad things are, uh, yes, she was tough. Okay,
She was just a stern kind of
she
woman.
was
Yeah.
stern, and she ran the city the way that she felt it should be run. Uh, she was quite a matriarch. Listen, she set Portland up for what came afterwards. Okay, from 2000 to 2015, maybe 18. certainly right before COVID, uh, Portland was on a roll. I mean, we were living off the trust fund that Veracat's put together for
Hmm.
us.
Hmm. She kind of started that path.
She absolutely, and I think there was some good. They say I don't know anything before 2000, but people have told me who were here there were some good decisions made before that too.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like Bud Clark and
Yeah, yeah,
but
exactly, exactly. So I liken it to this. You know, she was like our Rockefeller. She made a bunch of
mm,
money
mm.
for us. She put the stuff into the trust fund and she said, "Hey guys, don't spend the capital, okay? Because that's number one rule. If
Right.
don't spend the
Yeah.
capital, spend the interest." We burned through all our capital, and we wound up like a bad trust fund baby.
Mm.
You know, drug addicted, living on the street in a tent. It's it's a it's a horrendous uh, analogy, but it fits so well
It's
for
like,
what we've done to
yeah,
ourselves.
the city level
We just
comparative of
we
that.
came in and it was my complaint was year after year so much experimentation with our city.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it was one experimental ride after another, stacked on top of when 2006, 7, 8, 9, the stuff that was coming out of City Hall was whacked. I mean, first in the nation. What are we doing today? Who will be the only city in the nation with an AI ban if we pass that?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Number one.
Yeah.
Here we go again. We're going to go ahead and we're going to experiment away. We've got this opportunity to get the foundation built, but instead we're going straight to big time experimentation again.
Yeah.
And we're gonna start, instead of having a conversation about results, we're going to have a conversation about alienation. And we're going to
Mm.
tell business, you
Mm.
guys suck, which is what business hears. It's not really what they're saying, but that's what business hears. You're not welcome here. Okay. If you're not welcome, that's fine. I'm not welcome. I'm going to go someplace else. And that's what happens. And you wind up with no permits going through the permit department
Right.
for housing, which is what the number one thing that we all want to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, it is and there's so much in there too. I'm glad that you have that background, like I said, because like at some point maybe I'll do like a housing, like a Portland housing thing. But the one thing I always try to tell people is that like, and it's because I have all this stuff on my head of, the GSEs and all the government regulators and all that stuff. But what I tell people is, there is a nationwide housing shortage, and I
Mm-hmm.
just think it's at an extreme in Portland because of a lot of these policies that we have. And like, yeah, you can find housing shortages all over the country, but it's worse here because a lot of these policies and stuff that scare developers away. That's my
Yeah, they scare them away,
opinion
and
about it. But
and if you want to incentivize them and say, hey, put in affordable housing or low income housing or market rate housing, whatever you want to say,
yeah,
and we'll incentivize you to do it, and we'll give you some money, but now you got to have a LEED certified building,
right.
and you got to have set asides, and you have to do this, and you got to do that. The developers leave because it's not possible. As soon as the margins are, everybody thinks the margins are phenomenal. You know what the margin is? The margin is between 90 and 95% leased. Okay.
Wow,
At
wow.
90% leased, you're not cash flowing. At 95% leased, you're cash flowing.
So it's just that
That
small
little
difference.
piece right
Yeah.
there. Okay. And Portland stays, I just saw the other day, they say 7. I don't think there's a good statistic in the city for how much for either commercial or residential real estate. I don't think it exists. I don't think there's a good handle on what our vacancy rate is. I would say if 7 is being proffered, it might be 10. I doubt it's 7,
Hmm.
but it's probably a little higher than that. I would bet that it's closer to 10. So, that combined with negative business sentiment, a dysfunctional permitting department, a lot of rules, and the developers just leave. And that's not our money. That's money that comes from California and
Right.
Chicago and New York and Texas and every place else. These guys roam the country looking for
Hmm.
fertile places to put buildings in. We were fertile. We were tremendously fertile because people were moving here, and Portland was so cool. We had our act together. Again, I would say while we were burning our capital, there just was so much that it took us this long to get to the bottom of
Right.
the bottom of the
Which
barrel.
is amazing,
I said, yeah.
but yeah, we've spent all that money. And I was curious because you mentioned you said Cleveland.
Hmm.
Is that because do you see Portland as kind of like, how, because I grew up in like a timber town in Oregon, and you know how like, do you see Portland as that kind of comparative thing of like a city that the industry has gone? and now it's kind of
Yeah, I
refinding
think
its footing. And
industries were leaving. So, like I said, I came here in 2000. Businesses were leaving Portland in 2000. Stinson Lumber
oh, okay,
left. And,
okay.
people be,
I
oh,
remember
Stinson
Stinson.
Lumber. Yeah,
Yeah,
those guys, they were cutting down trees. They're horrible. All right, whatever. It doesn't matter. Put names on whatever you want to call them, whatever you want to call them. They're businesses,
yeah.
okay? At the end of the day, if you turn to them and said, "Hey, we'd like you to be more environmentally friendly. What can you do? Can we work with you?" You might have a different conversation than "We hate you."
And in Oregon, logging is huge, or was huge. I don't
It's
know. Yeah,
tremendous, yeah.
yeah.
So, but it's been a slow degradation, one after another. Our tenants, the few that were of national firms that had offices in buildings that my partner and I own, have left. All of my partners have left.
Right,
They've all left.
right.
They live elsewhere at this
Well, I
point.
was going to ask you if I'm sure every business owner thinks of moving somewhere else. Is that something that crosses your
It
mind?
crosses my mind a
Yeah.
lot. I mean, it's tough. What I'm hoping for is rapid, responsive change. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping some of the just really simple things that could be done that would change the. Like, I mean, we get national news if we just did like a couple of little things. People be like, look at
Hmm.
what Portland just did.
Right.
You know,
Well, and it's interesting because it'd be almost the contrarian, like, reversal of the old. Because I agree with what you were saying earlier of, like, at least ever since I've lived here, it seems like our currency as a city politically in political policy is to do the new novel thing just to make headlines or
yeah,
whatever reason they're doing it. And now it's like if you if you kind of flip it and, like, the way you were just saying of, like, hey, we're not going in the same old direction we used to. Now we're going to try this. It's the same boldness, but it's just not in the same pattern of what we used to be doing. And
yeah.
so
It's
it kind of fits into that lane if they want, But I
yeah.
don't know.
For us, it would be experimental.
Yeah.
And listen, we have nothing to lose right now.
Right. Right. Yeah.
If we continue doing what we did, we're going to continue with the same results that we had. That's just the way that it's going to be. Uh, I will, prove me wrong, but
Yeah.
just that, there's no way that this is the definition of insanity that everybody speaks of.
Right.
We're going to go there. Okay, fine. Or you say, okay, we've got some fundamental things that we could do. It's interesting. I wrote an op-ed piece uh, a few weeks ago, and I sent it to all.
All the media, local media. Yeah.
Hush. 5 things that we could do in Portland to basically completely change course on the city really rapidly.
Yeah.
And the number one thing that I brought out was, we've got this preschool for all tax, and I don't know if you look at the numbers on it, it's a crazy tax.
Yeah. I've heard that it's,
It
and the
doesn't.
amount of people it serves is really small.
It's a
And
very small
yeah.
number of people. It's overfunded by 450 million bucks, and on the way to 650 and 750. And if we don't stop, it's just going to keep going up, and it's going to be $1 billion someday. There's not enough preschoolers to burn the money. The best
Right.
thing you can do is have kids that move to Portland right now that you want them to go to preschool, because we're paying for it, and we still have money. We could send them all probably on the interest at this point.
So
But
that was your number one
that was my
fix
number
that
one thing.
thing.
Fix that. Reduce it to zero as of 2024. Okay, you're already overfunded by a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah. And that seems to be a chronic thing right now with the county and the city of,
Yeah, a lot of
we have these
mistakes.
reserve funds,
Yeah,
earmarked for certain things, and nobody wants to kind of unlock them for other
correct.
purposes.
Yeah,
But at the same time, they're screaming at the governor and anyone they can get money from to be like, "Hey, we need more money." Meanwhile, there's a pile of money.
there's a pile. And yeah, that's a whole different conversation. But I'll stick with this train of thought for
Yeah,
just a
sorry.
second. So
In your
the
op-ed, yeah.
the my thought on it was not only stop it as of 2024, but take like just the last year's worth
Right.
of collections and give it back to the people that paid it in the last year, okay,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
even 2 years, whatever.
Something like
Keep
that.
keep the rest. Okay, keep the rest. But one stipulation: you have to still be here. Okay, so if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
picked up your business and you left, that's a bummer. You're welcome to bring it back, and we'll give you your money back. Otherwise, stay out of here. But if you're still here, hey, we appreciate your
Yeah.
contribution to our community.
I think that's a great
Yeah,
idea.
I mean, that tax
That's
is,
the kind of boldness
well, it's
that you were talking about a second ago of,
big
like,
decisions,
if you did that, not only would that make national news, but that's a real incentive for people to be like,
huge
"Hey,
incentive.
yeah,
It would incentivize me. I mean, I tweeted a long time ago, or X, whatever you call it nowadays. And I said, my business doesn't need preschoolers, it needs employees, but I'm sending all our tax money to the county. and I can't hire. I can't buy a laser table. My investment in my company is reduced. These are things that cause us to be more efficient. I'm competing on, let's say, a global scale. Okay. I'm
Yeah,
competing with
sure.
Chinese.
Yeah.
I'm competing with other companies around the United States. And if all those places have a lower cost of goods sold than I have, I'm at a disadvantage.
Right, right.
My competitors that are in Vancouver have a lower cost of goods sold than I do. So what am I going to do? I have to either take a lower margin, which is always scary. I mean, look, capitalism is a fragile thing. You know, competition is what keeps it in check. And I love and put us up against an even playing field every day, all day. I'll take that bet.
Hmm.
50-50, let's go. I'm on board. Put me at 60-40. I'm not so sure about that. And I'm feeling like we're a 60-40 proposition in Portland. Like it's
Mm.
costing us more to operate these tier three businesses uh, than other places that we're competing with. And we lose deals. I mean, we lose deals because, and they're big deals and they're jobs.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if this is what you were thinking of, but I know that I want to say there was a couple at least on the big. There was all that Chips Act money, and
Hmm.
and I'm saying Oregon as a state. I don't know about Portland, but there was certainly like just people were not coming to Oregon for that scale of development.
Well, then, we got Intel out.
In
But we,
Hillsboro,
yeah,
yeah,
we if we focus on Portland, Intel's not doing anything in Portland. They could care less.
yeah.
But they're out in Hillsboro, and they're highly incentivized to do what they do. I mean, they're a tremendous economic engine. They're a
Hmm.
perfect example of why when in Portland we say, you know, oh, you're in the pocket of big business, whomever. Like if Keith Wilson says, hey, I want to put together a consortium of businesses that are going to help define what business needs in the city of Portland. And he goes and works with the Portland Chamber.
Hmm.
He's working with exactly the people that are going to be branded as big business.
Right.
And there's going to be a very vocal outcry, probably from an extreme minority of people. Oh, he's in big business's pocket now. And you know what just happened to him? His political career just ended.
Right.
Okay. So he
Right.
needs to be really careful about how he positions that. And like even thinking through, but you can't only talk to local businesses either. You need big, you need small, you need medium, you need
Right.
it all.
Right.
It's 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 like saying, I want to have a look, think of it in terms of an ecosystem,
Hmm.
a natural ecosystem. The more diverse it is, the stronger it is.
Right.
Okay, it's resilient when it's diverse. If we want to say, oh, it's all about local business, no, 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 it's not. You can't go there.
Yeah.
It,
It's. I was trying to think of like animals and stuff, and it'd almost be like if there was just birds. Like birds can't eat other birds. Like there's gonna
well, some of
be,
them do, but
I
and that
guess,
might be what winds up happening because
right?
but
Cannibalization.
yeah,
Yeah.
you get that going on. But it's
Like you do need that ecosystem for everything to
yeah, it's
flourish.
the thing is for somebody like me, it's so clear and it's so defined the things that are required to sort of just change the trajectory in our city. And maybe I oversimplify. Everybody would say, to every simple answer, there's a lot of complexities. And well, you know what? That's why a real leader, like hardcore leader, needs to step up and say, and it can be in council, it can be at county government, it can be with Keith Wilson. It doesn't matter. Somebody needs to step forward and say, hey, we're going to do these things. We are going to break a few eggs on the way. That's admitted. We know that's going to happen, but we are going to make progress. If Vera Katz were here right now, this is
That's
exactly
kind
it.
of her.
She would hammer
Yeah.
this through and she would change the trajectory of Portland. In a year, we'd be looking at a different
Yeah.
city.
It's interesting because I was going to ask you about your take on the mayor and Keith. And to me, and I've talked to him on here, like he seems perfectly positioned to be that guy. Like he was I would say medium-sized business owner. I think he had like 100 employees at
Mm-hmm.
Titan.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think he would be that voice for like, I'm the outsider candidate. I won with a heavy
Yeah, he's got a
win. I'm going
listen.
to speak for the
Yeah,
business community.
if anybody walked into office with a mandate, it's Keith Wilson. I mean, what do you get?
It was
57% of
like
the vote?
something around
Almost
60.
60. Yeah,
Yeah.
60% of the vote on a platform that had a
Basically one.
he was flying one
Yeah.
flag. I'm going to end
He's had
homelessness.
one
And that's a
position.
that's a lot of chips all pushed into the pile on one single thing.
Yeah.
And what am I feeling? I think that he's extremely well intentioned. I think he's a super smart guy. I think that, and I thought this when I met him before the election, that he's naive and he doesn't understand how complicated Portland's politics are. And so I think that he's run hard up against that. You know, when he first came out and said, "Hey, everybody's got to come back to work,"
Return to
yeah,
office.
oh man, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's hangover from bureaus first,
Mm,
not the people first. Okay, that'll get sorted out. Council will sort that out eventually. They're gonna be forced to deal with it. We got budget issues, and you've got constituents crime, bloody murder that, we want services get going on it.
right.
And so I think that it's just naturally over time going to start to work itself out. And we're new to this, so give it a minute, and I can appreciate that. But I think that that if there's criticism of him that I hear, not mine, it's that who the hell is he? Like he's not out there really pushing and
Yeah.
saying, we were hoping for what Portland is hoping for is action. We want something to happen right away, And
Urgency.
yeah,
Yeah.
look, we voted. What did we just do? We tossed out the old government. We took an experiment on ranked choice, multi-member ranked choice voting. Um, we have demands. We voted for changing this. We want this to be something new. And what was the first piece of legislation we have? It's 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 legislation from the old city council mind frame. Okay, exactly the old city
Right.
council
Right.
mind frame. Okay, and it's now seeped into the new city council, and it's the wrong message, completely wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. It is what I was thinking. It's so I have a hard time distinguishing between like this new mayor is arguably has less power influence. But I also agree with what you're saying because I don't see like people still blame the mayor for everything even now in this early term. But I don't see Keith being like the mouthpiece maybe that he should be as a mayor of a large city. Even at the meetings, like I barely hear him talk.
Then he
And
should buy one. Get
yeah,
get a press somebody that can do it for him.
yeah, because that's
He,
what I don't know. Like I get that and I do like the stuff he did with I think it was Salvation Army. Like he put some of his own money or something into expediting getting more shelter space. But I think he could be a way more influential person if he could do that and then also be a voice for the business community, like because that's his background. And
yeah. So
before we recorded here, he was talking to me about how he used to be in TV sales because I worked in TV for a long time. Like he worked for NBC and he was a sales guy for a long
mhm.
time, and I don't see that coming through his mayoral time yet. Like
Yeah.
and it is that single focus, and I get that that was his campaign thing, but
Yeah, and I
if
feel
we
like
want to
that.
revive Portland, like somebody's got to be
Well, and the thing is about reviving Portland is it's more than just one thing. If he is, and he is, I haven't spoken with him since he's been elected to office, but anybody that has and has spent time with him, 100% has come out of those meetings and told me that he is laser focused on one thing, and that is ending this
Mhm.
basically holding himself to his campaign promise, and that's it. Everything
Yeah.
else is going to
And he kind
wait.
of set himself up, I guess, with the year timeline.
Yeah.
So,
And so I kind of feel like, and I don't know, I may be speaking out of school, but I feel like he's lacking a coalition around that. Like he
mm,
could he
mhm.
could look, like I said, the business community in this, as weak as it is weak, it's disenfranchised, and it is really, really upset at the moment. I mean,
Yeah. Hanging by a thread, maybe
it
you
is
could say.
terribly upset
Yeah.
with the course of events in our city, and a lot of people have voted with their feet and they left, and there was a large wave of them, right? Especially when that preschool for all tax
Hmm.
came, who left, and so you got some hangers on like me and people like me, but they're disenfranchised. They're not happy with what's going on.
Hmm.
However, they would, if the mayor were to reach out and say, "Hey, I want input from the business community. I'm looking for 10 people right now."
They're more than happy to.
Oh my God. I mean, people would, they jump all over it. They'd show up from, out of the woodwork, and they would want to put, he'd have trouble trying to figure out what resumes am I going to be working with
Right.
here? What's the best mix for me to get into this and figure it out? Or he could do it very quietly, and he could appoint someone to find those people, or he could pick them himself
Hmm.
just from the business community and say, "Hey, there doesn't even need to be, or there could be a quid pro quo here. Okay, help us. We need help, right? These are the things that we want to accomplish. But that's the very first thing. It's like, what do we want to accomplish? We don't have a guiding light right now. No guardrails, no saying, okay, we're going to legislate according to these things. We've got our first piece of legislation. The second one is coming up, which is for housing, Mitch Green. And um, again, they're highly experimental. Only us. This is Portland. Okay, we're going to try and figure this out with this experimentation before we build foundation under ourselves again.
Mm-hmm.
We need to figure out what it is that we're trying to accomplish, and like get a vision statement, and then just legislate to the vision statement. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're legislating to that, at least you've got a guiding light. And hopefully, council's doing something like that. I don't know. Have you heard anything like that
Well,
going
that's an
on?
interesting question. I mean, I think, yeah, if you were to ask all the counselors, it seemed like their focus would be kind of different. But yeah, I agree with you. If they were all on the same page, that should be the first step. It does seem like they're kind of trying to, their guiding light right now is just figuring out how to do their job. And that frustrates me. It frustrates me to see a council that big with 12 people. It takes so long just to
Yeah.
get through the
Yeah, it's like
motions.
a decision by committee, which is everybody knows the worst way to
Yeah.
try to make
And
a decision.
I don't know if that's just an efficiency thing, but yeah, when we had this, I would say there was a mandate for back to basics livability in Portland, no matter what district you're in. It
Hmm.
seemed like that was something everyone wanted, and that seems like the a distant
Yeah, but
priority at
like
this point.
livability is like going out and having maybe a $15 hamburger.
Right? Yeah,
You know?
yeah, and it's just yeah, like both the things up for vote that you mentioned, they don't seem in line with that. Like I don't
Mm.
know, it just seems like everyone's focus is kind of scattered, and they're trying to figure out voting blocks and alignments and
Man, it seems to me like what's really needed is some leadership in if that's what's going on. I mean, they need some guiding lights. And one of the things that I started to mention earlier is I started to try and find a small group of business people that could sort of draft something and go to Keith Wilson with it and say,
yeah,
here's
yeah,
here's a call it what you
kind of a
want. Like
roadmap or
it's
yeah,
just a business centric piece of legislation that we would like to see presented to council. Okay, and and I think Keith is the person to put it out there. Somebody has to put it out there. I don't know if citizens are allowed to put legislation for it. I know the bureaus
it's
can,
a good
the
question. Yeah,
legislators can, and I know the mayor
I'm sure
can.
you could float it
I'll
to
bet.
the
Yeah.
mayor and everyone else.
Well, so come up with this thing and say, hey, fix it. Do whatever you want. Tell us we'll go kick rocks or fix it or
Hmm.
suggest changes, whatever. But we want to give you a good foundational document, and then hand it over to city council, okay? And let's argue it. Let's put it up. Let people talk about it. Let let business come in and discuss why we feel that this is a good thing.
Yeah,
And once it's legislated, there's guardrails, okay? That's a guiding light. That's now decisions that are made have to take into account this piece of legislation that says, I don't know what it says, it hasn't been made, but let's just say that at a very high level that it has to take in the an aspect of economic viability for businesses, for instance. Just
mm-hmm.
some high level, maybe there's a little bit of minutia in there too, but mixed together in a way that suddenly Portland, instead of feeling like a place where business is disincentivized, we just got a huge
Yeah,
place at the table.
yeah, I agree that it seems absent from
Mm-hmm. I don't
almost
think there's
every
any,
single meeting of like, hey, we got to keep the economics in
the
mind.
words never come out of anybody's mouth.
Yeah.
Again and again, I watch, I listen, and business is never the conversational point. It's like
Yeah.
it's
Well,
an
actually, you just reminded me one of the things, and I'll talk about this on the review episode in a few days, but it bugged me that and you can have opinions on all sorts of stuff, but one of the first things they're doing now is they're like launching this investigation into Zenith Energy,
mm-hmm.
which is like people can have all sorts of feelings about climate and all that stuff and what they're doing. But I saw that as anti-business too. It's just like, so the first thing we're going to do, one of the first things we're going to do is investigate a private company for their contract with the city. It just seemed like
For what?
not a good thing to do
What
out of the gate,
what are we trying? Okay, I'd go back to the same conversation again. What is the okay? We need energy. Got to have gas. I mean, we may hate it and whatever,
Yeah.
but you need it. And so these guys are providers of that. Wouldn't it be better if you were working in in conjunction with them instead of against them?
Right.
Because as soon as they
Yeah.
feel alienated, they turtle goes in its shell. Now you have a completely confrontational relationship. It's going to
Hmm.
cost 10 times more to resolve if you ever get to resolution. And the resolution is basically going to be who yells the loudest.
Right, right, yeah, yeah. And I just think of stuff like that, and I'm like, well, I don't know that much about the contract, but I just see, hey, big new contracts like that probably not going to happen if you're
Hmm.
investigating the people that you do
Yeah.
contracts with,
Yeah.
But
And so, yeah, I guess Portland needs to think about what his priorities are. I have no idea about that Zenith Energy. From a purely philosophical standpoint, I would say involve business in the conversation. If you're trying to get to a place, then work with Zenith, and
yeah,
you might exceed where you thought you were going to get.
yeah. And I
But
know I wish I could remember the counselors, but there was some pushback, from some counselors of like, hey, I think the language in here is really like threatening to businesses
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. Well, that's
scares
good
them
to
away and
hear.
stuff. But yeah, you made me think of that. I was going to ask you a couple of other things on here that are sort of in that lane of, because for the past year, all the candidates and stuff I've had, I always ask them about MLB, the
Hmm. Yeah, the
big
state,
push to
new
get him
stadium. Yeah.
here, and then the Live Nation deal. And I see both of those as kind of the stuff we were talking about of like these bigger size businesses
Hmm.
that feed the smaller businesses. But I just, I've lived here long enough, and you have too, that I feel like we have these opportunities and they come and go, and
Yeah,
I guess
they'll
it worked
pass.
with MLS
Hmm.
soccer, but I don't know. How do you feel about both of those things?
Uh, Let me take the Live Nation first.
Sure.
Okay. Uh, so I have friends, like an architect that I worked with for a long time in the city of Portland would definitely be the architect for that.
Okay.
She's been going around and doing it nationally. I think she's probably helped to bring us as a potential venue for that. What I guess the part that I don't understand is, why is this bad for Portland? I hear Councilman Dunphy saying, "Hey, we're like this organic music scene, and we're really cool, and we're all these different things, and Live Nation doesn't fit that." Well, Live Nation's music. You've been to Nashville in the last few years. I mean,
I was actually a friend was just sending me pictures, but you always see like it's a crazy music
oh
city.
my
Yeah,
God. I mean,
it's everywhere.
I went there sometime in the last 6 months, and I'm like, God, this would be so cool if Portland had a third of this going on.
Yeah,
This is insane over here. And it's a little Disneyland to it, but
yeah.
Jesus, they got such good music and tons of it. And
Just blocks and
I mean, last
blocks of
Friday, we were looking, I was like, let's go try and check out some music tonight. I don't know, man.
yeah.
There's not much
There's a
out
couple
there.
places.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I think another venue allows Portland to, I mean, it could be used for a lot of different things, and it probably would. Uh, it puts us on the map even more
Hmm.
for music. You remember during COVID, we'd have these bands coming to Portland, and all their instruments get ripped off. Like
Yeah,
they're
it still
total.
happens.
Yeah, it's
When I work in
that.
the news, it was like every week.
Yeah, crazy, crazy
Somebody's
stuff.
van
And
got
then
broken.
yeah, and then we got blackballed. The bands started to go to Bend, and they didn't come to Portland anymore because Bend was safe, and it wasn't safe here. And
Hmm.
Bend's still reaping the rewards of that. I mean, I think it's a better music scene in Bend than it is in Portland at this
Yeah, I
point.
can see that. Yeah,
And it just, it's like anything that propels us to a better place and a higher level in whatever genre you want to talk about, is how can that be?
right.
I'm confused about how it can be bad.
It's kind of the same idea with Major League Baseball. You're like you're in the nationals of music.
Hmm.
At that
Yeah,
point.
yeah, and Major League Baseball, yeah, it's expensive. Uh, it's not well thought out. There's a bunch of problems with it. There's no question about
Yeah,
that. And it's going to, now we're going to the state and asking them for $800 million or something. We've popped up $150 million. Uh, in my experience, all of these things that get government money involved with them, we're still scratching the surface. It's going to wind up being over a billion for sure. There'll be
probably. Yeah,
overrides and everything.
yeah.
There's a litany of things that'll happen. And so you got to have a huge commitment to it. And I think you need to be realistic about it. See, the Live Nation thing, they're completely different, because Live Nation's they're not asking for anything.
Right.
They're just asking
Yeah, I
for
know.
they're asking for a permit.
You're right. Yeah, it's bringing a pro sports team. You have to basically invite them and say, "Hey, look at all the stuff we're doing."
Yeah,
And I believe Idaho is another. There's a couple places that we're competing with for the baseball, and I see us kind of losing that one
we might.
right now. Like if it were to happen right now. But yeah, the Live Nation thing is interesting because I remember talking to Jamie Dunphy at an event once, and I think his whole position of that is like he used to be in a band, so
Hmm.
he's in that music group that is kind of opposed to that. But I think people, it's kind of like you were saying earlier. Mostly, it's just Portlanders making a boogeyman out of Live Nation because they do some bad stuff. They just, I think yesterday, whatever, got hit with some lawsuit, but at the same time, it's like they're the big player in the country, and I've heard from a lot of people on here who want a big venue in Portland. They don't like. I've been to like comedy shows at the Moda Center, and it's not really
The Moda Centers,
ideal.
yeah. I mean, I don't want
It's
to
old
bad.
already,
Yeah,
and
it's
it's
a
made for
bad mouth.
basketball.
It is made for basketball, and it's the acoustics aren't there, and
Yeah.
everything else. It's just sort of is what it is, and
And I've heard that from a lot of people of like, yeah, it'd be nice to have like a full-fledged big venue so we don't have to go to Seattle or
well,
somewhere else.
plus just having some like forward momentum. Like,
Yeah.
oh wow, this is cool. We're actually doing something
Puts us on the
again.
map.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
puts us on the map. Here's something that's real that's going to happen. And the stadium could be the same thing, but realistically, I mean, how soon does that thing
That
come
thing's, yeah,
together?
like a 10,
Yeah,
20 year
yeah, it's a big,
thing.
yeah, it's going to take forever. And who knows if it'll site where they're saying right now, it'll probably come, but there's an awful lot of things that need to fall into place to make that
Yeah.
happen. One of which we have to clean the city up. And
Yeah, that's why I don't really see us like any national league if they were looking at Portland and comparing it to any other comparable city. I don't think they're going to go with us at this point. And that's sad, but we have a lot of stuff to clean up if we want to invite that kind of
yeah,
business to our
yeah,
city.
that's just a tremendous investment.
Yeah.
Yeah, no question.
I know that even I'm actually gonna might do an episode here about it soon, but there's kind of an upcoming push to get PIR like out of the city
Yeah. Huh.
because there's a lot of complaints about the noise and
Yep.
and,
Yep.
and all
Yep.
that
Yep.
stuff. But
Yep.
I just think stuff like that's like going the opposite direction that we need to go and for any kind of putting us on the map type of stuff. But
Yeah, I think anything that disincentivizes business at this point should be scrutinized very carefully. That would be one of the things I'd say, if you're going to do legislative something and say that here are your guardrails for city councils, if it disincentivizes business, you need it has to like scale up. It's got to go
right,
to it has to pass some
that
committee.
prompts another.
Yeah, it prompts something to happen. And if that word is the final word, no, that's a disincentive. It's not going into legislation. Sorry. Your AI ban could very well wind up in exactly that situation that it hits a committee and the committee's like, nope, that's deemed anti-business. Sorry, not going to happen. And just an idea, but
Yeah,
but it's a radical change from
I
how
think it's a
we
good
how
idea.
we function.
Yeah, because I was thinking, I wonder if there is a committee. I think they have like a development committee,
Mm.
but it's not really like, from what I've heard, it's not really that focused intensely on business as it should be. But yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a great idea to have that as a barometer
Yeah, and they
for
could do
all
it. I mean,
conversations.
maybe you could do it for a lot of different things. It doesn't just need to be for business. I mean, there may be 5 silos that need to be paid attention to when we legislate so that we've got a common goal. And because the thing that scares me about politics more than anything else is backroom deals. Hey, you vote for this thing, which I know you don't like, but if you do that for me, I'll vote for your thing that I don't like. And what you wind up with is 2 really crappy things
Mm,
that are, and this is the my biggest bitch about Portland politics is people have these agendas. They get voted into office and they're suddenly pushing their agenda forward.
yeah,
Agendas do not create foundational government. That is not how this gets done. It gets done by cleaning our streets, filling the potholes, you know, running a decent city, balancing our budget, making these things happen, being efficient about basically the business of running the city. Boring? Yeah, get you.
yeah,
I get it. It's boring as hell.
yeah.
And once you do that, now you can kind of do what you want. You can
Then you can
experiment. Yeah,
spend that time on the other.
exactly. We
Yeah,
can talk about stadiums and, whatever
yeah,
else we want to talk about is fine, and come up with good ideas. But again, have some guardrails and say, if it doesn't, if this crazy idea that I've got doesn't meet at least 3 out of 5 of these criteria, it didn't even get into the floor. It just
yeah,
it's
yeah,
dead before it goes.
yeah. Um, Let me see here. I was going to ask you really quick about like, do you have any specific issues around where you're at? Because I think if I found your place right, do you know Opus Creative? Do you know those guys?
Opus is
Are
are
those
they
kind of near you?
northwest? They're in
It's like
northwest, right?
Yeon around
Yeah,
there.
they're right across the highway from us.
Okay, because I
So
did a lot of work or a little work there
yeah,
years ago.
yeah.
It's gonna make me sound old, but I made a commercial there for something called Social Cam, and this is when Instagram first came out,
Wow.
and these guys just got buried. It was like
Yeah.
they were like late to the game. But I know that's a unique kind of area of Portland, so I was just curious if you have any like, do you have the same issues everyone other businesses do? Or?
Yeah, I'm on the board of what's called NEBA, which is Northwest Industrial Business Association. So it basically starts there at, I don't know, Yvonne or Yeon or whatever, or Thurman maybe, and then runs down to Lentz and goes from the river to the park.
Okay.
So it's a big strip, and it's an economic. Well, let's put it this way: it should be a tremendous economic engine for the city of Portland.
Mm-hmm.
This is where uh, when we say blue collar jobs in the city of Portland, these are people that are making 75 to $110,000 a year.
Wow.
Uh,
Great middle class, upper
good.
class. Yeah,
Listen, the people that I employ have been buying houses consistently in the city of Portland. Okay, so
that's great.
they make. I'm participating in health insurance. I just got to say, call out to the health insurance industry. 36% increase in health insurance this year
It's just
for us.
skyrocketing. Yeah.
36%. Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful. Great job, guys. I don't know what you're doing, but just keep it up. Um, so it's it has all of this potential, but I call it right now, I just say it's blighted. It's a blighted neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are vacancies where there are job hubs of people. They're in there going to work for a few hours.
Mm.
You can always find parking. That's never a problem. There's just not enough people coming to work anymore. And that area, it's got great real estate. It's got all of the things that it needs to be a real like economic engine for the city of Portland, but it's just sort of sitting there stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And it's it's tough to be on the NEBA board and listen to the things that we communicate about, like trying to get people to join and be part of our business association. The businesses are so negative on Portland right now. They don't even want to spend $200 on fees. It's like, what are you going to deliver to me? It's
Right.
all skeptic. It's just, if you can't tell me you're going to fix this, I want nothing to do with it. And it's that's rough, man.
Yeah.
Where if businesses were feeling like they were appreciated and they were strong and they were growing on that growth curve, they're on the different curve, uh, they'd be contributing to the arts. Probably our art tax wouldn't be needed anymore. And why do we have an art tax? Do we need an art tax? I mean,
Right. Yeah.
businesses are famous for donating to the arts. It's what they do.
Yeah.
They invest in their community until they don't, because they're either gone or the community isn't willing to support them in ways that help them be strong and profitable.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my point.
This you might laugh at this, but have you ever considered running for office at all? You
I mean,
seem very passionate
a
about it.
lot of people have asked me to do it, and I'll tell you, I thought about it. Yeah, I've been asked repeatedly, and frankly told that you should just run for office. One of the things that's really interesting in Portland is you can't hold a job outside of being in
Oh,
office.
there's a moonlighting
Yeah. So as a
thing.
business owner, I don't know how Keith Wilson's doing it. I don't know if he sold his business or what he's doing,
Yeah.
but as a business owner, you can't be involved in city council as a council member. So I'm not in a position to walk away from my
Sure.
business,
Sure.
and neither are probably 99% of the other business owners in town. And so, interestingly, this is carryover from the old system too, because in the old system it was the same way. You couldn't run a business. You had to set it aside while
Mm-hmm.
you're in office. And I think there's probably some good intention around that. I kind of get it, but it also precludes. I mean, how many people on council right now have been business owners? This is a serious question.
Yeah. Trying to think if there's any. I mean, Keith might be the only. I'm trying to run through them all. There's not very many though.
Yeah, if any. I
Yeah.
mean, and if they were, it's probably long in their past, and um, that seems like it always seemed to me like a place where you could sort of, ease that law a little bit, ease that
Yeah.
rule, and let business people actually have a say on city council.
Be more.
Otherwise, they're never going to have a say.
Yeah. I was
And
like, be
so,
more inclusive. People
oh
love to use
yeah,
that word. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I know it'd be totally inclusive, and
Yeah.
and that goes along with incentivizing too. It's like we do value you. We care,
Yeah.
and we care enough to say that you should be in the conversation about how the city is governed. And that's why it's kind of weird when you think about it, like that chasm between business and the people that say, "Oh, you're in business's pocket." You hear it again and again in
Hmm.
Portland. Oh, yeah, like I use Rene Gonzalez in business's pocket. He's doomed now. His political career's got to come to an end. The thing is, that's because there's no place else for business to go. What have we got? I mean, we're going to go down to the permit division and complain to them. They could care less.
Yeah.
We're going to the police do. They're realistic. Uh, but it's really tough. I mean, there's no voice for us,
Yeah.
and so you get these kind of weird places where the voice can be heard, but it doesn't. There's no place for it to resonate.
Doesn't
You
resonate.
know,
I was thinking because even the chamber gets that, right? Like people just say, "Well, that's coming from the business
yeah,
community."
Chamber's a super interesting group. I mean, they kind of represent big business and what we call big business, but it's property owners downtown. That's sort of their venue
Yeah, I
right
guess it is
there.
more district, kind of
Yeah,
district thing
it's a
too.
district, and I've tended to just kind of have a relationship and an understanding. I think that they're very well meaning, but I also think that they're the touch of death in Portland. If you want to
Yeah.
be a change agent to see things truly improve, unfortunately, they're always going to get that's the big business group over there, and it's sad that it's that way, and it shouldn't be. But by them getting branded like that, their effectiveness is diminished.
Yeah. Well,
Eh,
that's what I was just thinking because you were saying like there's no outlet, and they seem like they're the only one, but they have this reputation
Well,
that they can.
Portland has 100 so I sit on the budget committee for Prosper. Okay,
Oh, okay,
we
sure.
talk about Prosper at some
Yeah.
point too, but um, they by their own count, there's something like 100 business associations in the city, and this is one of the things that prior to COVID, I was trying to, and even well post COVID, but not during. It was to try and pull like acquiesce these. Let's precipitate out these
Mm,
groups.
mm.
Let's kind of join them together and try and figure out how to get them to be uh, a group that focuses on the needs of business in the city. We all have similar needs. When I joined NEBA's board, what I found out is the industrial guys, they don't even want to talk to the retail people, and the retail people feel like the industrial guys
Mm.
get all the love because they're the ones that have the most jobs.
So
And
there's
then
this kind of
oh,
infighting in there. Yeah.
and then both of them hate their landlords because the landlord's charging rent, and the landlords hate the banks, but so does everybody else. So what do you got? I mean, we have this fractured sort of 100 different business communities in town
Yeah.
that aren't talking to one
They
another.
got their own
They're not
agenda.
yeah, their own agendas, and
Yeah.
usually their agenda might just be a street. It might just be Upper Hawthorne,
Mm.
or wherever, any place. And I kind of felt like, okay, we just reset the clock. We've got 4 districts. This is the moment where Prosper should step up to the plate and say, hey, all you registered business associations just disappeared. Okay. We have 4 districts. Now we have 4 business districts. Now let's
Mm.
focus. Okay.
Mm.
Let's get let's get the 4 districts together. Let's put a president or a head person in those districts and figure out how to just an idea
Yeah,
how to
I like that
focus
idea.
this energy in a different way, because those business associations that exist right now, if there's 100 of them, it's a great number. I love it because it just works perfectly.
Right.
98% of them have zero power. They're not heard by anybody. They're preaching to themselves, their own choir, if at all, and that's all they get. They might get a little bit of city money here and there, but with the budget cuts, even that's going to diminish to nothing. So they're going to be out there trying to do it on their own.
Unless they're unified, they
If
have
they
no
unify, if
traction.
they unify and stop saying industrial doesn't want to talk
Hmm.
to retail. Look, there are certain things in this city that every single business owner should be able to agree on. Okay, and if those are the guidelines that could be a legislative piece of information that could guide future legislation in the city, if we could come together and figure that out. That is a tremendous, I mean, it's a Sisyphus. Every time I roll the rock up the hill, this is the way I feel about it. The higher I get with the rock, shit, the bigger beating I'm going to take, man.
Yeah, yeah. I believe it. Yeah, if, just being in business as long as you have too, it's kind of a testament to. I don't know. I know a lot of business owners that haven't made it. 10 years. The 10-year mark's kind of the famous
Yeah.
thing, but um, That is surprising though. I didn't realize there was 100. That's a lot of.
And
Yeah.
the count could be wrong. I mean, the point part of it is no one really knows.
Yeah. Well, it seemed, and it also reminded me of the same siloing of like the old bureaus in the city, kind of the same, it's just siloing in general, but that does
It
seem
is. It's siloing,
unfortunate.
and it's yeah, it's too bad. And I think that the business community could take ownership for this, but they really need some help at the moment. It's like they need a spokesperson,
Right.
whether that's me or it's somebody, whoever, it doesn't matter who it is,
Some
but
kind
someone
of,
come up with some ideas and then join onto those ideas and move all of the bureaucratic shit out of the way. Just let this start to coalesce around an idea. Let's just take the best one. Whoever comes up with it, it doesn't matter. It's how business works anyway.
mm,
You're going to come up with the best decision and then you're going to execute. So let's do that. And let's get us into the thinking process at the city that business is important. Economics are important. We cannot have a strong city without strong economics. That is a 100% fact of life. Okay, it can't just run on city employees.
right.
We have somewhere between 8 and 10,000 city employees right now. Okay, they're the largest employer in the city of Portland. The next largest employer for a headquartered, so I'm going to for a business that's headquartered in the city of Portland is Precision Cast Parts with 2 to 3,000. So the city of Portland, when we talk about headquartering is important. It gets a little bit sketchy, but understand if a Portland business doesn't have its headquarters in Portland, it means that it has tax nexus someplace else,
Right. Right.
like Delaware, for instance,
That's
or
why it's so
Utah.
popular. Yeah.
Because what they're doing is they're saying, okay, Portland is a hammer for me, or it's a tool. I have an outpost there. It generates a bunch of revenue, but the revenue is actually winding up in Delaware where I don't pay tax.
Right.
And I've totally avoided Portland's problem. So when we talk about this is the really interesting thing about like these local taxes that we put on business. Local businesses suffer the consequences of those taxes. Large corporations don't.
Hmm.
So
Because they can just tax shelter
on
elsewhere.
preschool for like preschool for all specifically the the clean energy fund is completely different. That's on retailers, I think over 5 million,
Yeah.
and
There's
they
like a
pay 1% of
threshold.
gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that one's different. That is very much directed at corporations that don't dwell in Portland because those are the Targets and the
Or
Walmarts and all the
yeah.
other guys have
Even though I
left.
don't think we have a Walmart in Portland anymore.
No, they all left.
Yeah.
They pulled
There was
stakes.
one on 82nd,
Yeah,
but
we're gonna tax you to the bejesus. You set your prices nationally, and well, over here in Portland, you're gonna use the same pricing that you use every place else, but we're gonna lay a 1% tax on you, and people are gonna waltz into your store and steal you blind.
right.
I
Right.
was talking to somebody recently about security guards and the cost of security guards. I can't remember who it was, but they told me that basically for an unarmed security guard is $50 an hour, and for an armed security guard is somewhere between 90 and 95.
Wow.
So, like I remember I haven't been in Nordstrom in a while, but I went to Nordstrom downtown, and and I was floored by the number of security guards they had. Each door, you go into the door, security guard, armed. At the base and the top of each escalator, a security guard. The store had like 7 security guards. It was $700 an hour, roughly speaking.
There's a
Every
lot.
hour
Yeah.
that they're open, 365 days a year. I don't think they ever close. That's a ton of money.
But it also tells you that pencils in versus their loss
Someplace
prevention, right? Like,
it must.
yeah.
I mean, either they've got self insurance. I don't know what they do. I mean, suffice it to say, it's a ton of money. I mean, this REI had the same problem. Two
Hmm.
security guards
Hmm.
all the time, and probably one roaming the floor, and not feeling loved. I mean, that was a sad, really sad. This right down the street from my house. When they left, that was a heartbreak. It was like you've got to be kidding me. REI is.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had just moved into the Pearl. We were like,
Really.
you know,
I read a thing the other
they
day.
bolted.
I'll see if I can put a headline of it here, but there was like a thing about, I think it was that REI, where there's like a prolific one person shoplifting, and it was like something, I can't, it was like
couldn't
20
solve it.
grand or
Yeah,
something. And
can't solve it. On top of paying all those security bills and everything
yeah.
else,
Yeah.
and they blamed it on the landlord at the end of the day. That's corporate speak for we don't want to say what the problem was. Always blame the landlord. If you're a retailer, blame the landlord. I went out of business, blame the landlord.
Yeah.
We're not renewing it's the landlord's fault. And everybody says, oh, yeah, those damn landlords. They property owners, they suck.
They're just
They, there's
the person to blame that's not
see
anywhere in the
the
picture.
moment I heard it, I'm like, that is what landlord doesn't want REI in their building?
Right.
Because what's it doing right now?
I don't know,
There's
nothing.
no lights, nothing.
Yeah.
It's vacant. It's going to stay vacant until further notice. So I'm sure the landlord was like probably being very realistic, and I feel bad. And it's probably not a Portland landlord. That building was built by a Portlander,
Mm.
but it got sold and it probably went to a national company who doesn't really get it all that well. Had they had local representation, which they probably did, they were probably telling you, this is, you really want to bend over backwards. Well, it doesn't fit the portfolio notion and this and that, and
Right.
so they hold a line on something, and then REI can say, "Ah, this wouldn't play ball." And probably what they wanted is, I want a reduction in rent because I got security
Mm-hmm.
guards here 24/7, and it's costing us, a quarter of our profits just to keep the doors open.
Yeah, it is sad, and I don't know if it was. I think it was around the same time, but I know that they expanded the one out here in Clackamas. They
Hmm.
expanded kind of around the same time, so you can kind of
Yeah.
see the
Yeah, and
direct result of that.
they moved up they put one up in Beaverton, and I've been in there. It's sad.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. Well, I know what you mean. Of like, some of the downtown ones, like it doesn't have the same like central kind of feeling.
No, the one downtown was totally cool, and they were
Yeah.
busy. They were super busy. It was there were mitigating circumstances that corporate REI just won't voice, and that's one of the big things. Is like business is afraid to say anything in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you say, if you pop your head up, your potential to get it shot off is big.
Yeah.
It's happened again and again. We kind of eat our own around that. John Gorham with his entire restaurant group, and Din Johnson, his same thing happened with him. It's like if you just make a small mistake in this city, you can really pay a tremendous price. Both those
Mm.
guys lost their businesses here.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking you made me think earlier when you were talking about the REI made me think of this, but it just seems like like there's not. You were kind of saying this, I guess, already, but there's not like a clear like business leader downtown. I feel like years ago there used to be more like I don't know. I guess what are they called? Timber, not Timberline. What are they called?
Uh,
The outdoor
oh,
brand. I can't remember the guy's
yeah. Well, no, that's from Columbia.
Columbia. Sorry,
Boyle,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Gert and
I think they still have their thing, but there's not a lot of like flagship things like that. I mean, I guess the Apple Store's back, but it just seems like that it used to
they've
be.
threatened to leave. I mean, they downtown, that stretch right up there between 12th and 14th, as you continue to head south
Hmm.
at night and in the early morning.
Oh yeah,
It
yeah.
is a scary
It
part.
is,
It is
yeah,
a very scary. I've walked through there and I'm like, "Ooh, man." I
yeah. I
mean,
remember.
and I'm hard in Portland. I don't drive. I walk every place.
Yeah, I mean, you live down there.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, it's a wholly different program on
It
that
it
side of the river or
it sort
road.
of was a shock to me a couple years ago when because I used to live on 10th. Um, I always call it the psycho safe way. I know people don't like that, but I lived in a limited income place on 10th, and I didn't have a car. I'd walk around all the
Yeah,
time down there. And I went back like I don't know many years ago now for a show at the Schnitz, and I walked around my old neighborhood, and it was so different. It was just like,
yeah,
and I couldn't find for a while a bar that was open, and I eventually went to the Virginia Cafe because that's been there
yeah,
forever. But
yeah,
but I was just shocked. I was like, this is completely different from
yeah,
when I was down
yeah.
here like 10 years
Yeah,
ago.
COVID did a tremendous amount of damage to poor. I mean, it really it wrecked business in a lot of regards. I mean, in my industry especially, and retail and restaurants, the
Hmm.
costs that they have to pay. I don't know how they make the ends meet anymore.
I don't
Like
either. Yeah,
a big if
yeah.
you got a big operation like Mech or someone like that, and you got tons of employees, and it's a cash hemorrhage every day. You need people to come to those restaurants. You need to seat three times. You
Hmm.
really do. You got to keep that place pumping.
And if you
To
don't,
If you don't,
you're losing.
you
You're
won't
at a
make it.
loss.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
won't make it. And you'll stay long enough until your lease runs out, like we started.
Right.
Once the lease runs out, though, all right, that monkey's off my back. We're done.
It's what's interesting because I feel like the thing that people cling to now is always like, well, Portland's still got the food scene. We got the,
Yeah, not
and it
like it
seems like
was.
even that's kind of on the brink. So it's
Yeah, I
hard
mean,
to.
it would be great if it starts to come back. The thing is, there's a ton of energy around it. Portland can be a super foodie city. It
Yeah.
was. I mean,
And I was thinking of the James Beard
yeah,
earlier.
yeah, which is
I
great.
know because you're,
That's phenomenal. That's
yeah,
a
because if you're
great.
on Prosper, I'm sure you're
Yeah, yeah.
talking about that.
That's a that's a huge win
Yeah.
for the city.
I think it's great.
Now we need to say, okay, what caused that to happen? What took forever, but and we need to cut that cycle down to a
Mm,
hundredth of what it was, and figure out how to build forth onto that and
yeah.
keep it going. as anything that we do that's good right now, we really need to come out and say, hey, that was a really big win for Portland, and start to try and correct some of the reputational damage, not just outside the city, but internally. Like, we need to feel better in general.
Hmm.
That's a big piece of getting us going in the right direction. And that responsibility comes down to our government. I mean, we need to feel like the folks that are in city hall and county, which is a whole different conversation, have our back, and they're really working for the good of the city and working to propel us forward, and not at a glacial speed.
Right.
That
Yeah.
like we're actually seeing things happen that make sense to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
And the infighting between county and city about how to handle homelessness and harm reduction and all these different things. Portlanders are fed up with that stuff, man. We
Yeah.
don't want needles on the street anymore. We don't want defecation on the street. We don't want people going and rifling the garbage cans every night and throwing the garbage all over the ground. Kind of fed up on that stuff. I mean, we kind of had it,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're very kind and caring people here in Portland, and we want to do the right thing, but you got to have some basic rules around, how society works. And without
Basic.
those,
Yeah.
it,
Well, it's funny because I was just watching a city meeting yesterday, and you made me think of they're getting into these arguments now about these. They call them what do they call them? Support groups or whatever. It's basically like P-pop, this group that I was talking about for a long time on podcasts that was handing out pipes and needles and stuff,
harm reduction stuff.
harm reduction stuff, and it just made me think that like I think that as a very basic North Star should be like a priority for everyone of just getting on the same page of like, okay, we can agree on the stuff that
Yeah.
will make Portland better.
Yeah. And the
And
city's there.
when you have that division, it's not going to
Yeah.
happen.
I believe it's, like I said, I think that every single person on city council has the intent for Portland to be a better
Yeah.
place. I have serious reservations about county and the county chair.
Yeah.
I don't know what's
And
going
especially
through
in the
her head.
relationship between the
Oh my God.
city and
And
them. And
I think that the last city council member, the last thing that they were doing on the way out the door, two of them, they were working really diligently to put um, like a mandatory public service if you got caught putting graffiti on anything in the city. Still,
okay.
that was my five things. That was one of them.
Like a
90
graffiti
hours.
bill or
Okay,
yeah,
if
yeah.
you felony grade graffiti, if you're convicted, which is anything over $1,000, and I've been contacted multiple times, and I've sat on many of these. I don't know what they call them, but they're like pre-trials where they basically want to know how much damage was done, and if as soon as it goes over $1,000, which doesn't take anything to get over a grand, and
Right, right.
they painted across my windows, it's
Probably
a
do
thousand
that in
bucks.
60 seconds.
Yeah, and so if you hit $1,000, you should have to do 90 hours of public service. Hey, you should help to clean our city up since
Hmm.
you decided you want to. And this isn't about being kind or progressive or anything else. Who the hell gets to paint across a window? you
Right.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
there should be ramifications, and it should just be set in stone. Make it easy. If it's 90 hours, you don't even have to go to court. It's just an automatic thing. Don't cloud the courts up with this stuff.
Yeah.
You're gonna do 90 hours. Next time you're going to jail, by the way. If it's under $1,000, non-felony, how about 45 hours? These should be simple equations for us to
Yeah.
work with. Now we have a complex system because the court system is at county, and the police in Portland are responsible for,
Right.
watching our streets and so forth. But that's where those disconnects need to be closed. I think Vasquez that's a phenomenal step in the right
Hmm.
direction for us. And that was congratulations to Portland to step up and say, hey, we do need to have a little bit more control over
Right.
our city than what we were allowing to happen.
Yeah. I did have stuff on here on the county, but is there any? I mean, I was just gonna ask you about them in general. You kind of just did talk about them, but yeah, is there any other like serious stuff before I get into my goofy ending questions here you want to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I mean, like
I'll
I
be
say,
doing a lot more about the county, by the
yeah,
way. Like
county's
I'm,
that's a tiger of a different stripe
and
over
I'm,
there, and it needs help. And I saw I posted something the other day, but no one really gets what I there. There's this movie. It's called The Two Popes. Have you ever seen that movie? I mean, most people wouldn't
is that
watch
the
it.
new one
It
with
it's
Anthony
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hopkins? Is that
exactly.
I never saw it, but I know what you're talking
It's a
about.
great movie. Most
Yeah,
Portlanders wouldn't watch it because it's about the Catholic Church and so forth.
I'll
But
check it out.
but
Yeah.
it's a really interesting movie. The essence of it, without ruining it, is only two times in the church have there been two popes, and the our current pope. I'm not a religious person, but it was fascinating to watch this stuff because incredible power in that office. made a decision that he wasn't the right person for the job,
Hmm.
and he promoted
You just
a guy
step down.
with a completely different mindset. He was conservative, and the other guy was very progressive. He's our pope today,
Interesting. Yeah.
and that's what I feel like needs. I just wish JVP would just
Yeah.
go to Brim Edwards and say, you know, I've completely, can I say fucked on here?
Yeah, you can say
I've
whatever you want. Yeah.
I've completely fucked this up. Everybody hates me. I'm under a tremendous amount of stress, and I'm seeing three therapists to try and sort this out, and it ain't coming to me.
Right.
So would you please step into this office? I know it's a mess, but I think you could do a better job than
Yeah.
me. And nobody, you know what? Everybody would, we'd throw a party.
It'd be popular.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, we would love her for it. It would be like,
Yeah.
you know, you just
Her
made
approval
the
rating would go upside.
upside.
Yeah.
It was just like, you just did the most important thing that you could possibly do. You helped save
Right.
our city.
Yeah.
And
Truly selfless. It would seem like,
getting the ego out of the way.
Yeah.
You know, I've never, I was laughing about this morning with a buddy of mine. So, when's the last time you heard a politician say they made a mistake?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. She's a great example of that too, of just like never admitting anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be doing more episodes about that because I don't know if you saw the texting thing, that thing got out about her texting with the Metro
Yeah, I saw that. And,
president.
you know,
I'm seeing everyone just avoid the county and avoid her at this point,
but the problem is
that's
that
just
there's
horrible.
we are so tied to them.
Yeah.
Portland can. I saw a thing on Dahlgreen actually the other day. This is funny. It's like it must be. It looks kind of real. Like there's these guys in a canoe and they're facing one another, and there's a starting and a finish line, and they're both just paddling as hard as they can against each other, so you can move the canoe a little bit, and you basically win if you get it one way or the other. And he's like, "This is the harm reduction and the city cleaning up, you know, the streets."
Right.
And it adds a little music scroll on it. It was so funny.
Yeah.
I'm like,
They are just
yep.
working against each other. But yeah, it just seems, I've never seen a political situation that bad with that low of a approval rating. And like I said, everyone in the political sphere around her just avoiding her, including seems like Keith at this point, but I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Yeah, I think
She's
just
toxic in the
yeah, that
sense.
was the word that was going to come out of my mouth. But I think, you know, it's like
But I think you're
I hate to say that, but it kind of feels like it's a toxic relationship with
yeah.
her with everybody, you know, and it's too bad because it's the result is we're all suffering.
Yeah. Well, you brought up a good point too, because it's something that me and Kristen from Rational Report are really trying to educate people, because people, and I understand it's confusing if you're not into local politics, but the county is responsible for so much
Oh,
that the
yeah,
city gets blamed for.
yep.
But
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion. Like just understanding and a very
yeah,
like we need a my partner, she says, we need a flow chart. Like it just shows this is county, this is city. And people
right.
need to understand whose responsibility is what, because she even gets confused. And I get confused sometimes. It's, but we handed off a lot of power over to the county,
Yeah.
you know, and then we pay them to manage that piece of what we didn't want to do because it was, I think, probably economically driven initially. It's like, why does Portland need to have a set of courts and Oregon City and, you know,
These
all
other
the
little
outlying?
cities.
Why don't we just put them all together and now we'll put them in Multnomah County and let them run the court system and the sheriff's office and they're supposed to handle a lot of other things too. And so all these cities put money in there for them to do it, but there's a lot of incompetence at that right
Mm.
there. We run into a lot of incompetence and most of it's, I think, because of the way the chair is set up and the way county government is set up. There's too much power in one seat, and when you get a dysfunctional leader, you wind up with bad results, and there's nothing that can be done. I started to proffer the idea of Kristen. Actually, we were texting back and forth about, you know, like a recall for JVP,
Mm-hmm.
and we need 55,000 votes, and she said there's no way
Yeah.
the industrial complex that she's dumping money into will come out of, you wouldn't believe how much money they'll throw at this thing, and you'll fail. And I was like, you know, that's a really good point. Um, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
I fired back that, but it's 55,000 votes. I mean, that's actually obtainable.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
There
is
are that
Portland.
many people that don't like her.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
exactly. And I said, it was like, this is Portland. There's a good possibility in an open election that she'll win again. I mean, we do that, you know,
Yeah.
we
You're
see
right. You're right.
horrible and we vote for it again
Yeah.
for somehow. I don't know if people just aren't paying attention or they get
Yeah.
fatigued or,
Yeah, well, it is interesting because I've had a lot of people tell me that too. Why don't we recall her? And I kind of agree with her, because anytime we get those signature attempts, they rarely make it past, and they kind of rarely pass muster. But
it's a super high
and it's
bar.
expensive to
It's
get those
expensive,
signatures.
and that's what
But
she was saying. This is like the cost of everybody that I talk to about it. Said, the cost will crush
yeah,
it.
and it's unfortunate. But I also think at this point, we're 18 months away from her being phased out. Or I'm
Is
curious to
she?
see if she'll even try to run. I'm assuming she
I
will,
don't.
but
Is she? Does she term out at the end of this? I mean,
I don't think so. I think she's got one more at least, because I think you can do. I'm trying to remember how many, three I think or two. But
yeah. Well, that'd be interesting to know because she'll run again. But Brim Edwards is she's already running her campaign as far as I'm concerned. I read her emails. She's spot on. She's very level headed.
yeah, and she's good.
She's
Yeah,
got the name recognition. She's got all the
she's been there
pieces
for a
in
while.
place. Yep.
Yeah.
And she's a true leader.
And she does kind of, in a way, I was gonna say, represent that business. I think she used to be with Nike, right? I think
She was with Nike, and
yeah.
then I think she was the head of the school board. I mean, she
Hmm.
negotiated us out of that union strike last fall
Right, right.
with no fireworks, just calmly, collectively went through that and got it worked out. And she was communicating what was going on. She was firing out emails
Just
and saying
good old negotiation.
this is where
Yeah,
we are. And she was she wasn't like, oh, the unions are trying to do that. No, it was just good solid communication. We're working on it, we're making progress, it's happening. And
very
no one,
pragmatic.
yeah,
Yeah,
people weren't happy about it, but it wasn't like it could. Can you imagine if JVP was doing
right,
it?
right. Yeah. I don't know what she can negotiate, but okay. Let me get into some of these ending questions here. Or is there anything else you want to add to your Northwest story? You've lived in Oregon pretty
20,
much your whole life.
25 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you
Second,
love it still. Like, I mean,
oh,
Portland aside,
well,
whatever.
Portland's bones. I mean, Portland has got so much, and the state of Oregon does. I mean, I went up to Sisters to do a job here a couple weeks ago, and I woke up in the morning. And you want to talk about like when you're thinking about moving out of Portland?
Yeah.
I got up. It's a sunny day. I'm looking. I'm in an Airbnb, and I look out. I'm looking at the five peaks across these fields, and I was right on the phone. I'm like, what do you think about Sisters? If we like it up here. We kind of like it.
It is. It's a beautiful state. It is.
Yeah.
Um, let's say this is an interesting one because people won't know this, but I always ask the parking question. Do you ever, because you showed up in a motorcycle. I hope I'm not revealing anything too
No,
much
no,
there,
that's
but
fine.
do you back in with that thing ever, or do you just pull in normally, or
I
like how do
I
you park with that thing?
I do a lot of backing in. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because
Parking's
then you
sort
can
of
just,
weird. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
get out. Um, it's funny because I used to have a scooter. I used to have a Honda Spree scooter years ago, and I got made fun of it. But I had it when I was at KGW, and I would put that thing on a bike rack,
Yeah,
like tie it with
yeah,
like a U-lock. But people there will like drive Harleys, and they make fun of me for riding that thing. But
yeah. So I got that motorcycle, and I've got a Vespa,
oh,
which
nice, nice.
just for zipping around the pro.
Yeah,
It's like my concentric rings. Close Vespa, a
right,
little
right.
farther, get the motorcycle. Out of town,
The
get the car.
range,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah.
the car doesn't go anywhere. I mean, we were laughing. We probably put 4,000 miles on our car a year
Wow,
because
wow.
we want. That's a nice thing. Like living downtown and living in the Pearl. You want to go to the market? Okay, there's three different grocery stores within a 10-minute walk. Okay, and you want to go work out? All right, well, there's five workout facilities right in the
Yeah,
area. Whatever you want to do, it's just so convenient and beautiful, and nice. Except for a bunch of problems that we have, and if those could get cleaned up, people would flood
it's
in. I mean,
super walkable.
it's a
Yeah,
great,
yeah.
great area. You got the park right there. Like we get up Saturday, Sunday morning. I know Lonnie probably got up this morning and took off and went and walked up to Pittock. And it's an hour and a half walk. It's great. It's like 6 miles, and
A lot
and
of
you're right. Yeah,
elevation.
you stop by Ken's on the way down the hill and
Yeah,
grab a croissant and a coffee, and it's a wonderful life. It's beautiful.
yeah. Um, what's your alarm situation? Alarm clock? Do you use one, or
Now I gave up on those things.
you just wake up naturally?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
sun. Wait, when it gets light, I wake up. It just
That's kind of how I am too. And even when it shifts around, like I'll
yeah.
just wake up with the sun, no matter what I try to do around
But
that.
I will
But
say between 4 a.m. and when I do wake up when the sun comes up, that's the best sleep.
yeah, that
Absolutely.
last
Oh
few
yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bummer to see it end.
Do you like a crunchy smooth peanut butter? Maybe you don't like peanut butter.
Well, crunchy almond butter, I'm all about.
Almond butter. Okay. I don't know if I've had crunch. I think I've had regular almond butter, but I'll have to try the crunchy
Yeah.
kind. Yeah.
Uh, Trader Joe's.
Their brand.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
good.
try that out. Do you have a favorite type of French fry? Do you like crinkle cut, regular cut, curly
That's a
fries?
good question. I would probably mostly go for curly fries, and
Okay.
yeah,
This is a controversial too, but I got into many arguments about this, but I consider tots to be a fry. Some people
yeah,
don't.
yeah, yeah. I don't know.
Fried potatoes
That's
to
it's sort of a bird of a different feather in my book.
okay. It's all
French
good.
fries
It's
are
all
French
good.
fries,
Yeah.
but the curly fries are cool because it's like you get more surface area.
Yeah. They're good too. I do like
Yeah.
curly fries. Do you have a favorite fast food place?
In Portland
Or
or in
anywhere,
general.
anywhere, anywhere, yeah.
No, look, I'm like
You a healthy
I
eater?
love to cook, and
Okay.
mostly we cook at home, and yeah, I'm a super healthy eater.
You in
So
the culinary mind.
when we say fast food for me would be like going for a banh mi sandwich someplace that's really
Those are good.
freaking
Yeah.
good. You know?
Or I always think one of the only local ones I know is Super Deluxe. They're kind of still around. That's like
Yeah,
a local. I think they're a local franchise, but
yeah, yeah.
uh, let's say you're getting ice cream at Salt and Straw or somewhere. Do you go waffle cone, regular cone, cup?
I've been more leaning toward cups recently.
Okay.
Yeah,
The old spoon in
just
the cup.
yeah, spoon the cup, nice and easy.
And what flavor?
No danger of having the cone roll.
Yeah, it's nice. I like the cup. I like the cup too.
Yeah,
What flavor? Do you have a
I'm anything around chocolate. I said Kennedy the other day, he's running his Maha or whatever,
yeah?
and he said, we're gonna these SNAP vouchers are no longer good for like three things, and one of them was chocolate, and I would never ever ever,
It's
write
a
back.
life
I'd never say anything like that,
staple.
but I wrote back, and I'm like, no chocolate, WTF?
What if it it would be interesting if they split it up up to like you can't get Hershey's, but you can get like dark chocolate, like
Yeah,
real
yeah,
dark
yeah, yeah.
chocolate
Dark
or
chocolate.
something.
Okay, go there.
Yeah.
If people
Okay.
can, yeah, I'm on board with that.
There's like ingredients threshold or
Exactly.
something. Um, trying to read my writing. Do you remember those? This is a new one I've been asked. It's kind of dumb, but do you like the circus animal cookies or the crack? What are they called? Animal crackers.
Hmm.
Or maybe you don't like either one.
I'd probably go with the animal crackers. I've eaten
Okay,
a bunch of those in my life,
I
that's for
like those
sure.
too.
Yeah.
Do you?
Bad idea to have a bag of those, like a bear
Yeah.
in your house.
Do you believe in ghosts or aliens? I was trying to read my
If I had to believe in one or the other, it's probably close to 50-50, and I'd say I probably believe in both.
okay.
Yeah.
More so than Bigfoot?
Bigfoot's a little more sketch in my book.
Yeah.
I figure at this point,
Over time you
yeah, he probably would have wandered through downtown. And, it could be, but
yeah. Okay. Do you I don't know, maybe you already said that. Was like a local place you wanted to shout out? Do you have a good meal somewhere? Or it doesn't have to be a restaurant, it could be anything. Is there like a local shout out you want to?
yeah, God, there's so many good. I will say this: the east side of the river, southeast, northeast, has a lot more density of super good restaurants
It's been
than
building out. Yeah.
yeah on the other side of the
Yeah.
river, and there's been some attrition. I mean, we've lost a bunch in the Pearl and in Northwest. Of course, Southwest has got its own set of issues. But I've been on this kick trying to find the best hamburger
Okay.
on
Yeah, yeah.
on the west side of the river, and I'm going to extend over to the east side at some point here. But I would say right now, I'd have to say that Higgins is in first place. Now,
For burgers.
the burger, absolute 10, no question about it. Hot, perfectly cooked, everything's fine. For somebody in there decided to make their own bun, that was a tremendous mistake. I mean, that lowered it down to like an 8, maybe a seven and a
So
half.
the bun's throwing it off.
The bun, I don't know. I was like, where do I leave a review about this? How you fix this? Because you got the perfect burger.
It's just one change.
You are. I mean,
Yeah.
just go get a brioche bun from wherever, man, and put this thing on there, and we're gonna be in good shape.
Just
You
out of
guys,
any bag that you
you're on a
yeah.
rocket ship. But it's
That's
like,
funny. I don't think I've had their burger. I was there. I don't know. This is the end of last year, but I didn't get food.
yeah,
I'll have to try that though.
yeah. You just
Do you
go
like
in.
smash burgers, by the way?
Yeah, I do. And
Okay.
I like all kind of hamburgers.
It's interesting to see that evolution, and then I still haven't tried. People are telling me they do peanut butter smash burgers and all this stuff. I also saw recently. I was talking to an American Indian friend of mine about because he's Navajo and he makes fry bread all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but they make like fry bread smash burgers.
I'll be damned.
And I was like, I would love to try one of those.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not the healthiest thing because
No,
it's
no,
like
no.
sugar bread
Yeah.
and
How many days am I taking off my life on this
yeah.
thing?
But I admire your burger quest. That's
Yeah.
cool. Okay, yeah. Where's the best place for people to reach you? Is it Twitter or whatever?
Yeah, you can direct message me over there. It would probably be the easiest way to
Okay.
get a hold of me. And if we develop beyond that, go have coffee,
Cool.
figure
Yeah,
it
I'll
out.
put your handle on here.
Yeah, good.
But yeah, thanks for coming today. This was a lot of fun. I like
Yeah,
talking to you.
yeah, yeah.
You're always
Love.
welcome back.
Thank you. Love to do it again.
Yeah.
There's a lot more things to talk about. Another 6 months would be a wholly different conversation. I hope.
Totally.
I
Yeah.
hope it'll be like, wow, things are really starting to go right,
Could
and
be.
and
Yeah.
we can talk about the positive things and like, oh, what if we did this? And
Yeah. Well, I've been some people suggested me doing like a business panel episode. Maybe I'll do that and have you back
yeah,
for that if
you
you.
know what would be? I almost texted you back a few weeks ago and said, why don't you get Mitch Green to come on? Well, first I thought about, why don't you get JVP? I just like to sit and talk with her and try to understand how the woman's mind works. But then I was thinking more about Mitch Green. He's a super smart
I
guy.
would love to talk
Yeah,
to
yeah,
him. Yeah.
he's a PhD economist. He's
Yeah.
got a good head on his shoulders. Uh, I think that he and I would probably
Some
agree to
stuff.
disagree on a lot of
Yeah. Yeah.
different things, but it would be
You can have a
really,
conversation with
oh
him though,
man,
it
it would
seems
be
like. Yeah.
phenomenally interesting to like sit and talk about our experience as businesses in the city of Portland versus our experience with, centralizing and socializing things in Portland. And I think there's room for both,
Yeah.
a lot of room for both. And I think there needs to be respect for both. And the problem that we have is we don't have any respect at this point. We just have a big chasm in the middle,
Right.
and they don't meet. And maybe they never can. My optimistic side says yes, they can. You can agree on a bunch of different things, and if you focus on those, you can make tremendous progress on stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think your message is a good strong one too of like, yeah, if getting closer to that unity, the more progress we can make as a city. So
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about reaching out to him, but like now it's 15-minute increments, and I just feel like
yeah, and you know what's weird
I get
is
it that they're busy,
like I'll try to reach out to him because I would like to talk to Mitch. He seems like I could have a conversation with him, but
hmm
this is like getting in the weeds. But I was trying to reach out to Eric Zimmerman the other day, and I noticed the city changed how you contact
yeah,
them.
yeah, they got
They
to
used to have all their emails just on there, and now
not
it's a
anymore.
form that you
Now you
gotta
got to
go
do a
through.
form, and you get a little, yeah, it's yeah, I get it. You know, they're underfunded on the amount of staff, and there's a lot of complaints. So I can only imagine.
Yeah,
Oh
people
my
are
God, what's
messaging him all
just
day.
getting
Yeah,
hammered with all day, every day.
yeah,
Oh Jesus, more of this. I guess it becomes a statistical analysis of that. Okay, well, 80% of the people that are calling are bitching about this guy that's in the park over there right now.
right.
We need to send someone
Yeah,
over there.
yeah. Cool, man. Well, yeah. Thanks again. We'll have to have you back.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thanks, man.
Good, thank you.